This hangout on air is live. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to OreAni, the end of 2017 summer season. I'm your host, Tenkin. With us, we got Ace, a new member with us.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you for joining us today. We have, as always, Jessica.
Hello.
Nick.
Yo.
And Sean.
What's up?
Space.
And as always,
not untrue.
We're going to have some fun with this season. Well, at least these guys are going to watch anything, so I'll leave it all to you guys to talk about everything for me. Starting off with the first season I missed. Made in Abyss. So, what kind of maids are we talking about?
None at all.
Abyssal maids.
There's one in like the dungeon.
So tell me why I should watch this show or not.
Someone else should tell. I'm not going to make the most impassioned argument.
Perhaps the aesthetic. It looks and feels like a Studio Ghibli film. The backgrounds are meticulous, gorgeous to look at. The music's beautiful. It feels, the production itself has a high quality feel to it. And the monsters, too, they just look wrong, like they shouldn't exist. And so that makes them very terrifying. What else can I say? I don't want to give anything away. That's the problem with the show.
I can't remember if we include this one in the precursor, like the.
Yeah,
we had to.
Sean talked about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was like the most impressive premiere out of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no way we didn't talk about it. And my expectations were sky high for this thing. I guess I will say that eventually it gets very exciting, but it takes a long time to get there. And as these explorers descend into the abyss, I hate to say that like a lot of the locations aren't that interesting, and I feel like there are a lot of squandered moments, you know, like it does get very exciting around like episode 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, what is it, 13 episode show, and then the finale is double length, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was cool.
But it takes them a while to get there, and a lot of those abyssal locations, you know, they're a little too foreshadowed. Sometimes you can see them very clearly in the opening, or you see them very clearly in flashbacks, so that when you finally arrive at those places, like all the wonder and like awe is just gone. It's like, oh yeah, I know this place. I've seen it like 3 times. And I guess the other problem is that the locations themselves aren't actually that interesting, because it's just like, it's a forest, but it's upside down, but otherwise it's just a forest. And I feel like a more imaginative show could have done something more with those, like had some interesting fundamental nature with each of these biomes, and like had the characters discover like what makes each of these places tick. But it seems like they just sort of come and they see, and then they're out of there. Like, and even with all the time that they spent topside in the city before they go into the abyss, I feel like they could have done something with that too. And I keep coming back to another show that I've seen called Shinsekai Yori, which is kind of has a similar vibe to this show, but I think it's much better constructed when it comes to its storytelling. And like right away, that show introduces a concept of these children are living in this strange information-limited, possibly post-apocalyptic society, and people are being disappeared, you know, overnight, kind of like some communist regime. And so there's this great mystery to figure out what's happening to the disappeared people. And that show like incrementally built up more and more knowledge and more foreshadowing, and it was really good at doing that. Where Abyss, they spent a lot of time in topside in the city, and you got the impression that like there's a lot of things that these orphans don't know about what they're actually doing and how the economy works and what's going on with like the deformed people living in the slums who are like the illegal treasure hunters or something. And like they're all, it seems like they're all these neat stories like in the city, but before you get to learn anything about it, they're already out of there and you don't really come back to it. So that's just one example. And but otherwise it's not a bad show. Like it is fun to watch. You can totally blast through it. It's it constantly looks great and all the design work is really good.
So
and it does get exciting once you get to the end.
Yeah, like kind of like the halfway through, like when they do start like running through that abyss.
So the thing I wanted to ask, since Sean said you can blast through it, I asked about marathoning it, and Jessica said that I might not be able to.
No, the first part of the series definitely, but the second part is so emotionally heavy that it might be difficult to do that. Is that when the show first started, I couldn't get my hands on the next episode soon enough. But there are a couple of things that happened towards the end that after I watched the episode, I curled up on the couch and just cried. Yeah. So there's some stuff that's very hard to see because these are ultimately children. And the scope of the show is so narrow because that's all of the world that the kids see. And so it's very good at putting you in the show as a child and seeing these things from a kid's perspective. Everything looks really big because they're short. That could just be because they're all chibis. I don't know. But things loom over them, and it feels very dangerous to be where they are. And you have to remember that they're just kids at the end of the day, and so they're not fully equipped to handle these horrific things that can happen to them. So I would say watch the first few episodes back to back, and then you'll know when to not do that anymore.
Yeah, like episodes 1 through 9 or so, you can kind of blast through. I don't remember exactly which episode where it gets pretty real, but it does.
Yeah, you'll know it.
The gravity of the situation has been established.
Yes.
So
yes,
if anything,
just the music and the artwork are top notch. So you really need to do yourself a favor and watch the show.
I would say it's probably one of the more unique to come from anime in a while, because we normally have like transported to another, or reincarnated another world as of late. Mm-hmm. School stories with a switch up on rules or whatever. It's a little bit rare to see anime come in where you have this mechanic of the abyss, which is like a justifiable curse. Like, we're still kind of learning about how it works, but this thing is no joke. Like, mm-hmm. I was kind of skeptic at first, like, how does ascending trigger this thing? And I kind of wanted to know more about the mechanics of this world, but in the end, like, it is an established like location. Like I'm just saying, like anime doesn't. What animes don't usually take place in Tokyo, for instance. Like this is not Tokyo. So I was interested in it early off for that reason alone. And yeah, I do have to kind of agree how at first, like, I think I was looking forward to every episode. I forget my mentality watching it, every other week, but I think I got to this one sooner than others. And just near the end, how it just took a stance on portraying a certain story type that it hadn't in its beginning. Like, I think everything started changing once you met this one character in like the third layer, something called Ozen. Like, when that character was introduced, that's when the story like kind of really got rolling into perhaps what it wants to be from now on. I'm not sure if there's going to be like a season 2. I mean, our story's not finished where we're at. We're currently halfway through the Abyss, but is there going to be an animated season 2, or are they just banking on you to go check out the manga from here on out? It's hard to say.
Yeah, that's one of the frustrating things about being an anime fan is you really don't know like why an anime exists. What are the success metrics of that anime? Because I want to know if they're going to make more of this thing. It's like I really want to see more Abyss. And so I looked up the production committee members, and it's like Kadokawa and the publisher of the manga and Sony Music and this TV network ATX and a bunch of miscellaneous companies I never heard of and Psy Games. I don't know what Psy Games has to do with this.
Really?
Like, is there a mobile game, mobile trading card game based on Made in Abyss or what?
Jeez.
Or will they do like an event later or whatever?
And what would make this anime a success? Is it that it's going to boost sales of the manga, or it's going to boost sales of something else, or is it supposed to be successful in its own right? Like, so it's really frustrating, right? But that's just how it is as an anime fan. Like, from the outside, like people looking at sales numbers, like the manga did get a boost, and people seem to be pre-ordering the Blu-ray box. And I'm like, okay, that all seems good. That doesn't mean they're going to make more of it.
It doesn't have that chintzy feel of we just made it in order to boost sales, though. Because if they didn't really believe in the property, they wouldn't have put in all of the effort that they did. But be that as it may, I'm totally buying the manga when it comes out in January. So if that was the ultimate goal, it worked as an advertisement.
I will say that the studio Kinema Citrus was actually on the production committee. So that means that they have a direct financial stake in this anime. So, that would give them some incentive to make it actually good, which they did.
You kind of actually made me wonder about the popularity because usually a lot of talk happens when it's really good, but I haven't heard anyone really talk about this.
Perhaps because, and I'm just reaching here, but it's really hard to talk about it without spoiling it.
Yeah.
It would lose all of the impact if you knew what we knew. And that's why we're kind of being vague about what actually goes on.
But would you say this would be more like an otaku title where the diehard anime fans are more into this rather than the casual people?
It's
hard to say.
I don't think it fits like the traditional like trashy otaku anime type, but for like a longtime anime fan, like if you're just simply not into the trashy otaku type, it's a little bit there. Like to me, like I said, it was unique and I liked it a lot, and would love to watch a second season. But that's true for most anything I watch. But this one to me was definitely kind of special with how it developed into its story in the second half. It's like it makes me wonder. Because like the first half and second half have such a clear difference in tone, what does that make for a second season? Will it all be to the tone of the second half, or we kind of had a positive spin at the end of this one. We after most of the tone, like the dismal storytelling was over, we kind of saw things like go a little bit upward towards the positive, but it's like what are we gonna do from here? Like. I really do kind of want to know, like, what is the aftermath of after the direct actions that happened in that last episode.
And if you're just hanging on to the point where you want to meet the bunny fox girl that shows up in the ending the ending song, you're gonna have to wait a long flippin' time. Let me just say, every week I tune in. This has got to be when we meet her. This has got to be it, because she features so prominently in the ending.
And then when they finally showed her off, Jessica's like, I didn't want it to be like this.
Exactly.
I think in terms of its otaku-ness, it is a seinen anime. So even though it has this like kiddie exterior to it, it is dark and twisted.
Mm-hmm.
It is not for children. Absolutely not. Absolutely not for kids. And in some ways, it is a conventional anime. So it's not like it's not in the realm of things like Shinsekai Yori or Uchoten Kazoku or those sort of things. You know, like this thing does exist to sell character goods. Like these characters are cute, they're marketable. You're gonna buy stuff. Like it has a conventional opening that like pimps these characters, and that's kind of sad because it shows you things that you shouldn't be seeing. That I really dislike how spoilery the opening of the show is, because you know it shows you a bunch of locales and it shows you all these characters, and it's like, well, they haven't caught up to where the opening and ending is, so I know that these characters aren't going to face any real danger. So that actually shortchanged some of the more perilous moments of the show for me, because I know that, oh, they got plot armor because we haven't caught up with, you know, opening and ending yet. But it's also not a genre show. You know, it's not like magical girl mecha, isekai classroom, magic school. You know, it's none of those things.
There's really nothing out there that you could compare it to, I don't think, at least in terms of genre. The closest thing I could think of would maybe be Haibane Renmei, just because you can't really classify that one either, because it's not late night otaku bait, but it's also not mainstream, and it's not for children, so it's an oddity.
Another thing that kind of reminded me was that Wataru Monoma or something like that. What was that show?
Utawareru Mono?
The old one or the new one?
The old one. Because you had no idea where that was placing. He had all these creatures, yet he looked human.
No, I don't think so. Because that was more of a sweeping fantasy epic with dozens of characters, and this one is very focused on just the kids. But
I guess Haimane is better.
Yeah, this show actually it reminds me of video games I played. It kind of reminds me of like Minecraft, for example, which, you know, where you can descend and then you encounter all these distinct biomes. And, you know, Minecraft is a survival game. You know, you have
Minecraft now with relics.
Mm-hmm. So Made in Abyss is kind of like dark fantasy Minecraft as an anime or something. It's like that description gets you like one half the way there.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't fall back on like a lot of the tropes that a lot of current series rely on, but that's just kind of what I meant. Like it stands apart from the typical season of anime. Like it is a rather special title in that sense. You're not going to find a lot more exactly like it, where people are in high school in Tokyo or somewhere similar.
Okay. Let's go ahead and move on to the next title. Whoops. Let's go to Siyuki Reloaded.
oh, putting me on the hot seat, huh?
You talked a lot about this show.
Yeah, that's because it's a guilty pleasure of mine.
Did it end up as good as you thought, or?
Yes and no. In terms of story, it was great, but the animation really took a nosedive towards about halfway through, to the point where it was just a bunch of stills and reaction shots. And I have to hand it to the animators or the director that they really tried to fool the audience into thinking that certain scenes were animated by using jiggle cam, speed lines, other types of animation shortcuts. And it's such a shame, because Sayuki is ultimately a fighting story. And there's so many fight scenes, and it just made me sad that they couldn't do them well. So I could really only recommend it to die-hard fans of Sayuki, such as myself, because the casual viewer isn't going to know where any of these characters are coming from, where they're going to, how they interact with each other at all. It will make zero sense. And I just wish that they had a little more money in the production to be able to deliver better fight scenes and whatnot. But I still enjoyed it.
So is this a matter of having to have watched all of the previous Sayuki stuff, or does this go beyond that and it's like you won't enjoy this unless you've read the manga counterpart in full?
I think you need to have read the manga to get any enjoyment out of this, because it assumes that you know who these people are and that you know why they're doing what they're doing. Is they don't even explain why the demons are acting up. And that's the whole crux of the narrative. They just assume that you know going in why that is. They don't tell you why the scrolls are important or anything like that. So,
And none of that's established in the previous anime.
the previous anime I only watched about half of because it had so much filler in there that it was pretty unenjoyable for me, a manga purist.
Oh, okay.
But I think that's why I would say that reading the manga would be better, because there's less of it to get through, because the first Sayuki series is 39 episodes, and then there was Sayuki Reload 1 and 2, so that's another 24. And then I think there are OVAs and another series in there somewhere. So you're looking at almost 100 episodes worth of material, whereas the manga, you've got 20 volumes. And that you can bust out in a weekend, really, if you're a fast reader. So if you want to see it, I'd recommend reading the manga. I don't really have much to say about it.
So it was a slight disappointment, or?
Yeah, the animation was pretty disappointing, but I'm happy with the story because that's kind of what I've been waiting for, is to get the next part of the overarching plot. And except for the first episode, there really wasn't any filler in this one, so yes.
So is this like the end of the arc, or did they leave anything open and now you have to
The
wait?
manga has unfortunately gone on hiatus. So this is what we got. And they probably won't animate anything more because there's nothing more to animate. But I believe the manga started in the late 90s or the early Ozs. So it's been around a while, and it's always maintained a certain level of popularity. It's just that unfortunately the manga artist's health has prevented her from regular serialization. So the intervals between chapters can be very long.
Okay. Seems like a lot of things are going on hiatus. Who was it? Someone posted about Hunter x Hunter going on hiatus.
That was me.
All right, let's see what's next. What should we talk about next? Nick, pick a title you want to share with us.
Jeez. I have to pull up the list.
Tell us about Kakegurui.
So, for now, I don't actually know because I don't follow like the internet channels of anime, but from what I heard, this one was a I forget if it hit the anime strike or the net. I think it was a Netflix title, because I think the biggest qualm about it being for the English watching audience is that Netflix likes to wait for a series to be completely done before they batch add all episodes in, so they don't like simulcast a lot of their titles. And I just remember a complaint being there that by the time this show would be, released in its entirety, it kind of would have been over already. Like, the crowd would have went through other means to watch it so that they could be on that hype train. And, like their current method misses that hype train, basically. But
yeah, like Fate Apocrypha has the same problem. So everyone who really cares about it has seen the fan subs.
So Kakegururi follows one of those like niche schools where it's a private school that businessmen, politicians, and just generally wealthy families send their kids to because like, you know, if you graduate from it, you're like, it spins you in a really positive light. You can get like jobs in the industry or whatever. And the premise of this show is that the school promotes gambling amongst the students, and I don't mean just like playing straight up poker. It's pretty much like one of those anime titles where you can invent your own gambling game. And this show in particular focuses on rather high stakes. And I forgot that, you know, a little premise here, because I forget what we did for the premise speak, that in this school, they promote gambling so much because they believe that it will really showcase your ability to, you know, put up a poker face, read into other people, make like those split-second decisions that, you know, like establish your kind of like your guts almost in a sense, right? Like, do you have that business? Do you have the senses needed to deal with people at a higher level? And one thing that I really noticed about this show is it has a kind of like an odd stylized opening sequence. Like the opening doesn't really portray like the animation of the series, but it's almost this piece of like I don't know. Its opening sequence scene is
Yeah, the opening is really something.
yeah. Like,
is it worth watching just for the opening?
well, no.
No.
I mean, it's neat to watch one episode of that show because
Yeah.
I think I only saw one episode of the show, but I think it broadcasts what it is pretty well, and the opening titles itself kind of fits into it.
Well,
go ahead.
No, yeah, that's just because I was gonna say. So like the opening to me, it's almost deceptive because the rest of the show focuses on non-dynamic animation. So like you never really get full body views of the characters. Usually as they're walking in the hallways or the classroom, fine. But because this series is so dialogue heavy, it usually focuses like on shots from like, you know, like the neck area, bust area, chest area up of the characters, because, you know, they're conversing, and they really focus on showing off the eyes and expressions of the characters. So like if you were to grab an episode and just like, you know, skip around the timeline, you'll mostly see like zoomed in shots of the characters dialoguing about whatever's going on, which that's what I mean. It stands different from its opening sequence because yeah. But I would say this is somewhat of a psychological show. Now, normally a psychological show tries to kind of get into your head, where I feel that this one is just a little less deserving of that. Not to say it's not there, but you know, it's so hard because they make intentionally high stakes in this, and normally you know that things won't get so bad for the protagonist, so you kind of have an idea that, you know, oh, everything's going to work out or it's going to be okay in some way. So it tries to show like motivations or personalities of characters. Like there's this one person on like the student council that, like, it doesn't really ruin this show, but they show her off so bad because like I don't know if this was original or based off anything. I didn't look at that. But she kind of, in her high stakes gambling, includes a lot of like personal harm, to the point where they literally like play Russian roulette like with an actual gun, and she changes up the rules. Small spoiler here, but she changes up the rules by letting you actually fill like the bullet chamber with as many bullets as you'd like. And she personally, like, this is her personality is warped around and anticipating this potential for personal harm, and it kind of shows her like, excuse me here, but like, you know, getting off on all of that. And it's you know, it's just a show that it's got tones all over the place. And
have you ever seen Akagi?
I don't think I have. It doesn't.
Yeah, a long time ago.
This thing is basically dominatrix Akagi.
Oh.
Because Akagi is another show about you know, like this man who they described as like the gambling demon, and he doesn't care about like winning for money. Like he loves gambling in itself and the madness of gambling.
That's the protagonist to a T.
Right. So I sort of recognized that immediately when I saw the first episode of this show. And like the school itself, the school for rich people which is organized through gambling. Like it's this world of madness and depravity. Mm-hmm. So so I kind of like this. It's not like, I mean, I obviously didn't watch the rest of the anime, so I don't personally like it that much, but I kind of respect that it has a thing, it has a vibe, it has an aesthetic that it goes for like 100%. Mm-hmm. You know, as opposed to something like Fate Apocrypha, which is just whatever, you know, like it doesn't have any real like artistic goal, but this thing like puts its artistic goal like pretty up front. And even the opening kind of ties into it.
Now, I didn't watch Akagi, but I will say a sub-element of this show, while the protagonist just loves the madness of gambling, she only wants to gamble to gamble. She doesn't care if she actually wins or loses.
Right.
What it tries to establish is a lot of the kids in this school have kind of like a casino mentality. Like the games that they suggest kind of tip odds in their favor, even though it doesn't look that way immediately. And it's not like necessarily in the mechanics of the games. One of the big points of this character is as she's gambling with people, she basically figures out on the fly how people are subtly cheating at times. And you know, kind of another spoiler here, but like a big episodic kind of template that they go through is she plays a game and gambles and loses a bunch of money, somehow is able to get another gamble using the same game again with like even higher stakes or something else that personally intrigues the person who recommended the game, the antagonist here. And then as she's playing the second game, she reveals that, oh, I figured out how you're cheating, and totally uses their own mechanic against them. Like that is a big element of most of the first part of the series until like the last episode when like she starts playing against some of the student council members directly, because there's not really like a lot of room for cheating in those games, but it's just it's something. So like the first half of it is like, oh yeah, I figured you out and I'm using your own mechanic against you. And then it kind of changes a little tiny bit towards the end.
Akagi had a little moment like that too.
Gotcha.
So I do kind of appreciate how over the top this show is with, because there are a lot of these like there are a lot of these anime series that take place in a school, but the school is set up in a weird way, and it's supposed to reflect the harsh reality of the real world, where it's a dog-eat-dog world. You know, it's like there's another show on the air last season that was like totally insufferable because it tried to do the same thing. I think it's called like Classroom of the Elite. I don't know what the Japanese title is.
I think that's going on this season.
But it was totally that. And that was like top to bottom insufferable. But like this show takes it so over the top that it's kind of humorous. And it also eroticizes it too, to make it even more depraved.
The opening clearly, and only a few characters in the series really. But it's there.
Yeah, and I guess like one of the other memes of this show is that they make these like ridiculous, I don't know what you want to call them, not exactly gag faces, but they got faces.
Yeah, it's almost like a Shaft head tilt shift, but it's more like a extreme zoom on the face and just like let's like illuminate the eye red or some other color.
Yeah, it's like when you see one dominating the other, then you see the demon inside. It's sort of what's going for.
Is that safe to Google?
Yeah. I mean, it's just like exaggeration faces.
I don't know if it's Googleable at this point, but
yeah, maybe.
Like, I just don't know if the images will like. Oh yeah, we know what you mean.
I have autocomplete said Kakegurui reaction.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know, because I think those are like always those YouTube videos of
Oh, yeah.
people watching.
Is it anything kind of
Check
like
this out.
explaining like a Roni Kenshin, where his eyes would like kind of change colors when he got more serious,
Sort
that
of.
glance and stuff like
If you
that?
go to my screen, it literally looks like this. I typed in Kakegurui face into Google Images. This is what I get.
Okay. That's kind of what I got too.
You know, so it's like when the facade of, you know, the dignified like elite, when that facade falls off and you see the demon inside and the depravity, you get this face. So they use those for special moments, pivotal moments in the show, I think.
There's a lot of them. Holy moly.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yep. I forgot to mention those. Like I remember, but
thing
that's
that
kind
show
of gets into like what I was talking about with like the moments of high zoom and just focusing on faces and expression earlier. I just probably should have attributed a little more to that.
That's what the Fate series needed.
Oh, it looks like it's close to what the manga was too, because there are a couple of manga pages showing up in the image results.
Mm-hmm.
Have that same style.
Crazy. Okay, I just want to go with one more title with Nick real quick.
Mhm.
The 18 If. Cause I remember you
I
said
didn't
you
watch
picked up that phone app. I thought you watched it.
I mean, I haven't watched it. I watched episode 1 of the series, but I didn't like it enough. And then I realized it was in the Android market as like a Puzzle and Dragon-esque puzzle game. So I tried that out for a little bit. And yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just saw all blue, so I assumed you marked.
I totally forgot that show existed.
Yeah, like if it was any good, I don't know. Because I watched the first episode and I really didn't feel it. I didn't like how...
Yeah,
I'll at
it
least
was
talk
bad.
about it a little bit, like as a non-watcher. So 18 If was a series that a character kind of would, you know, be dreaming, sleeping at one point, and like he would enter this dream world where people who are like suffering in their own realities can basically get lost in their own dream world, and it's almost like a VR world made real. Like reality kind of bends to them, and their true personality kind of to an extent comes out in this dream world, and in it, I think there are like a lot of, like, you know, if you die in the dream world, you'll die in real life or whatever. But he meets this like cat-like, almost like out of Log Horizon, that whatever that cat guy's name was. He kind of like this person with this avatar, because you can kind of make like an avatar in this dream world. And his goal is to basically free people from their comatic sleep state that, you know, they don't want to emerge from because things are finally going their way. And in it, there does seem to be another character who is called like the witch or something. I don't know, but she seems to be helping the protagonist, you know, stopping him, like saving him from like what would be instant death at times while like manipulating this dreamscape. But so like that's all I really knew from the first episode. Was he kind of goes into the dream world. I think he helps the person, and you know the narrative would expand upon from there. But I only checked out episode 1. So then I noticed the app, and I tried it out on the smartphone, and you know it had a pretty cool thing. You kind of like had a chain, like it was a puzzle game where you had to link a lot of the colors together to generate attacks, and if your chain exceeded a certain amount, you can make like a link piece, which will allow you to include another color into your chain and get like multiple characters attacking in it. But the story was actually slightly different from the anime that I noticed, because in episode 1, you have that interaction with this witch character that the protagonist and that cat-like avatar guy who's helping him out start to pursue in the dream realm. Like she's kind of a special character. And in like the first chapter of the smartphone game, they only like hint at her existence. Like, oh, there's this character that I'm looking for that does it. Like she doesn't come out and interact with the character right away in the smartphone game. So there's a slight storytelling difference there that I noticed, but I didn't pursue the smartphone game either. It wasn't that it wasn't that fun or anything. I think I was trying to get caught up on anime because I was like 3 weeks behind because of last season. So I was like, no, I can't play this game right now, or I'm just gonna not catch up.
All right.
I think the problem that I had with the anime, the like 1.5 episodes that I saw, is that the dream worlds aren't very compelling.
No,
They're not very imaginative. It's the design work is bad, the animation's bad. They're not very evocative of anything. So it seems like a much crappier Flip Flappers in that sense. Like the worlds of Flip Flappers was a bit more distinct. There's more visual interest.
I think I did watch at least 3 episodes of this, and it did get pretty gruesome. Like there was killing going on. Like I think they called it the Sleeping Beauty syndrome.
Yeah,
that's what the girls would fall asleep and they wouldn't wake up.
Mm-hmm.
And one girl was using it for revenge because her family was killed before her eyes. So she in the dream world was going after these guys in their dreams and killing them, kind of like in this Freddy Krueger-esque or Nightmare on Elm Street thing.
Gotcha.
And just murdering these men.
Yeah, like there's a lot to the narrative that I didn't check out, but I know like in the cell phone game side of things, one of the things was like there's like certain missions that like rewarded like a puzzle piece essentially, and if you completed the puzzle piece, the that Sleeping Beauty, the protagonist of each of these dream worlds, if you will, became like a member that you could use like special skills through, and they were, I think, to a point, playable characters. No, I think it was the actual character became a goddess, and you could use special skills through them. But if you completed the puzzle piece thing, you have their Dreamworld persona that you could incorporate into your team. And they, they were just stronger than... Because I think there is like some level of summoning in it. Like there's a lot of like mobby, monster character art personalities that you could get through that like iconic cell phone summoning scheme, but like they were like the rewards where after you've played their mission and you played the levels that drop the puzzle piece enough to actually get the puzzle piece drop because it's a random chance thing, you can get them, like I said, on your team, and they're probably just there for motivation unless you like did a pay for win style and got a lot of like super rare characters. They were just like that next level rarity that wasn't like the normal rewards from just playing missions, but like not super rare at the same time. It's a pretty normal scheme.
Going back to the anime, the other problem I had with it is that it's poorly written in a sense that like when they go to the world of delusion, they try to meet the person who's causing the delusion, and then when they it seems like Jessica's having technical difficulties.
I just noticed that. Oh no.
Okay. Well, anyway, so when they finally meet the person who's creating this world of delusion, then it turned into a real preach fest. Like they just like preached at this character, until she cried, and then that's how they solved the problem. And I'm like, wow, that really sucks. That very, very, very lazy writing to have it all come down to exposition. Like you have this fantastic dream world where anything's possible. It's like, is this the best thing you'd come up with? So it's like crappier Persona is sort of what it winds up being. Like the last 2 Persona games also had you diving into these worlds of delusion and like finding the person who's causing the delusion and sort of convincing them to face their true selves and emerge from their delusions.
That could probably be a limitation from the source material, though, because like I said,
is there source material?
Well, I think the cell phone game.
I don't know if that because I think this is one of these like, yeah, I mean, if you look up
it's
on
like a series made because of the game.
I think it is what they call a multimedia project where they
Yeah.
started all these things at the same time, and it's not like they had this great game that they wanted to adapt into an anime. I think this was all conceived like all at once. It's like, okay, we're gonna have a game, we're gonna have an anime.
But my perspective is like it probably came out in Japan, and like usually they don't make the Japanese games alongside the English one. So I'm thinking we had like a release, like period where only Japan was playing it a while before they made like an English port. So I just like assumed that the game started up, then when they went to do the animation project, they kind of somewhat released, because I think the game came out a while ago. Like I don't know if it released the same day as like episode 1 started airing, or even like within the same month. But
I mean, usually these shovelware games are like pretty fast to slap together. Like faster to slap together than like a full-on TV anime series.
But I think with using each other as an anchor point and basis, that might be like the storytelling shortcomings in the series, because I don't know how dialogue-y the cell phone game gets, because the biggest element is you go and fight the goddess and you use the puzzle game aspect to beat the goddess, and then you get like, you know, a little bit of dialogue. It's not this exasperative thing before you proceed to the next stage. So I was just thinking that, like, how do you adapt that to the anime? Like, how do you, because you can't do the puzzle game in the anime.
Well, I'm just opened up the first episode, and the first thing it says is based on the original game by Mobcast.
Yeah. Like, I assume the game had to be out to some extent before. Like, I doubted they just released episode 1 with the game, like, preceding it just by, like, a week or two.
Okay, so this game was released in October.
For us in English.
Of like, Then the anime premiered in July. I don't know.
No, I played the game just after the anime came out. It might have had an update in October, but it
I mean, like the previous October.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
Well, let's move on.
Yeah.
Shall we? Let's go to the Princess Principal.
Who actually watched this?
I
did.
Most of us did.
I got at least halfway through it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I feel like we already covered its broad outlines. Steampunk spy thriller, like alternate history weird thing, takes place in London, but split into the Commonwealth and the Kingdom. So it's kind of has this like East-West Germany situation where the country is split in half. Yeah, it's an original anime, and usually these things don't get second seasons, and I would be shocked if this one gets a second season. It's not a bad show. You know, I watched all of it. Sometimes I had to force myself to watch it. But I wish these shows would just end strong and wrap up. And then if they're going to do another season, they could totally introduce, here's like a new set of spies. I would be totally okay with it. But this show kind of leaves it open, right? It doesn't really resolve its big things, but it sort of reaffirms the status quo. And then, you know, it's like we can have more adventures with these same characters later on, which we mean never. So the ending was a little disappointing in that sense.
It was abrupt too. Everything was in high gear, and then all of a sudden the ending credits roll, and you're left thinking, "What? Really? That's how we're going to end it?" And then there's another little scene at the end, and again, what you said is that it didn't really have the guts to conclude the show.
No, it just reaffirms the status quo that we've seen, that was established in the first episode.
And it's a shame because it's pretty cool. I mean, the character designs are really easy on the eyes. Everybody looks real cute when they're killing people. It's a juxtaposition I've always enjoyed. Yuki Kajiura was the composer, and usually inward cringe because her music tends to sound the same in every series, but she's real low key in this one. So there are no piccolos, there's no violins wailing with a female chorus whenever there's action. So music was good, in that you don't really notice it as much as her normal stuff. And typically, when an anime has a lot of little standalone episodes, I lose interest really fast because there's not a lot of character development. It's just the episode du jour where nothing really changes. But this one, it was almost a character study in a way, is that it really examined these characters under the microscope so we could see what made them tick. And I appreciated that effort.
Yeah, they did flesh out the characters. I thought the character studies themselves were a little bit thin or lacking, or I feel like they didn't go into it as much as they should have, or I don't know.
A for effort, though.
Yeah, like A for effort,
Mm-hmm.
not A for execution. But you know, like the characters were certainly more well established, and you were more invested in those characters than you were in something like Joker Game, where they just kind of came and went.
Exactly, yeah.
So I don't know how this ends, but do you think if they added more depth to the character, they would have killed them all? Usually when they put a lot of depth in the characters, they kill them.
I don't know. It could have gone either way in this one. I feel that even if the episode had been 10 minutes longer, it would have been a better ending than the one that we got. Because it just felt so rushed. So we gotta hit all of these story beats, and oh crap, we're out of time. Is how it felt to me.
Yeah, it ended pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
I thought there was going to be like some sort of pivotal thing that happens and it ends in a cliffhanger. At least they don't end it in a cliffhanger. That would be even worse.
True.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of enjoyed it as like a style piece, I suppose. It did have a lot of style, and like even though it is of a genre, it's not of a conventional anime genre. You know, the like steampunk alternate history spy thriller thing. Like someone made that because they thought it would be really cool, and not because the market is demanding more shows that are like this. You know, so.
Mm-hmm.
I respect that. Like it's an original anime that has some sense of originality to it. It's not just like here's just another mecha anime, but it's not based on anything. But you won't know that.
The opening sequence, both the song and the animation, are excellent. I watched it almost every single episode, and the ending theme is super cute too.
Yeah.
So my next question would be, because I noticed, like I said, I saw at least somewhat half of it, I think, that I noticed it wasn't airing in chronological order. So is it easy to establish when certain episodes are happening, or?
Yeah, I never got very confused about that. I thought it was perfectly understandable.
It did a pretty good job.
Like the first episode does open with the whole cast like already assembled there, and then I think the next episode they introduce like this is how this person joined the team, and you get a few of those.
I think the only moment that was not even difficult for me, but I thought I watched something like out of order, was with the introduction of the Chisei character, because I think they had her like play a big part in one mission, and then they played the episode about like how she became part of the team, but like in the episode just before, she was already kind of there. So
yeah, I was going to mention that same episode, but after a minute, it's pretty easy to tell what's going on. Mm-hmm. So it's not like the original broadcast of Suzumiya Haruhi, where it was nigh on incomprehensible because they aired the episodes out of order, or like Toka Geton, where they aired the last episode first and went backwards. It's not like that at all. It's fine.
Yeah, it's not trying to make you struggle with piecing together the plot. It's not a struggle.
Okay. I didn't think it would be, or else they would add like timestamps or dates, because that's usually what they do with shows that tend to be all over the place.
Yeah, I didn't feel the need to like look up a guide or a timeline or anything after the
Yeah.
show ended. It was I pretty much got it.
But would you say this is a recommendable show, or is it just one of those kind of guilty pleasures for you?
It's watchable, but I wouldn't recommend it. I wasn't wowed by it beyond the first episode.
I would recommend it only to a certain type of anime fan. So there's not a lot of steampunk in anime. So if you're a steampunk fan and you like anime, then I would definitely recommend this to a person. But I don't know if I'd recommend it to everybody. Just because I still don't think they make very good spies, honestly. I hope for more cat and mouse, but it pretty much ended up being Dorothy showing off her tits and Anju saying that she was a spy to somebody that she probably shouldn't have said she was a spy to. And yeah, so they blew their cover quite a bit.
Well, there's a bit of a spoiler with that last one you said, at least there, Jessica, because as the episodes go on, we then find out more of their back history, which made a little bit more sense to me, because I was kind of with you there at the beginning. I thought the same thing. I'm like, why would, like, that's a really ballsy move. Why would you do that? And then when they reveal at the end, like, you know, I'm like, okay, that made a little bit more sense. But yeah, and I was just gonna say, it's kind of funny how like the crew was kind of that hodgepodge crew that was assembled, because like two of them are actually spies and the other two were like one's just like
A
somebody
mascot
from
character.
Japan who's not really a spy, but not really, but kind of, and then this one person who was just servant to somebody who has this cool voice changer thing that her dad make that they saw as useful, so they tried to give her some quick training. But yeah, the cast is interesting, at least, and I'd say most of my enjoyment is like almost like how much freedom they were given and to complete their goals. Like, you know, they were just kind of given a mission, and then you kind of have to see them dialoguing about, okay, how are we going to pull this off? And, you know, they do kind of come up with ways to show the strength of the particular characters, except when it comes to Dorothy, because, yeah, that's what she used to her advantage, as you stated. That was her biggest investment on the team, usually, is, oh, I'll distract them with, you know, wiles, whatever.
Femininely wiles. Femininely wiles.
So, but it was an interesting show. I definitely did like it. I think I picked it up early on because of that, like, that like whole weird sea-ball science thing, like the pseudoscience that the world doesn't really acknowledge it as exist yet, but here we have it and are using it. We just decided to give it to, like, you know, the best spy we had, so the only one we have is what she gets. Like, to me, there was a little bit of, like, kind of like weirdness there. Like, we have this technology for, like, I don't know, gravity vector control stuff, and the other side's working on it too. We already have a working copy, and, you know, there's spy stuff involved there, but
Yeah, it was like it was a metaphor for like the atom bomb or something, where they're like
right.
trying to get the scientists who can like crack the code and make the A bomb. So I kind of liked it in that sense.
The two standout episodes for me that made me enjoy it a lot more was the one that dealt with Chisei, because it focused on being a foreigner in a strange land and how that is. And in a lot of anime that don't take in place in Japan, there's usually a, you know, Japanese character in one of those worlds, and everybody just kind of rolls with it and they don't talk about what that's like. But with Chisei, we got to see the racism that she experienced and the loneliness. And so that was a pretty strong episode.
So
And the other
this is the
one,
one where she has the gun duel, right?
yes,
Yeah.
that one where she's trying so hard to fit in. And
I think a little bit to a point, it's also in the time frame that this thing was kind of aimed for, because now we kind of have like stereotypes of like every country and, you know, like what they're kind of known for. Like, like we have like stereotypical jokes made around like what the Japanese are good at or what the Italians are good at, and this came from like a time when the world wasn't, you know, it was before like really the internet, so there's not a lot of cultural exposure at this point. So like it's even more extreme in this case. But yeah, go on. Sorry.
Oh, just the other episode I liked was when they showed a character under extreme stress because of the double life that she had to lead. And that was pretty interesting because I think most normal people would go through that if they were to try spying or if they were to try faking their way through something. That is not easy to do, especially when the stakes are so high. You get killed. And that was a very strong episode, in my opinion.
You know, the funny thing is my favorite episode is the one that like has a very different tone from most other episodes. Because mostly you see them going about achieving their mission. And actually, one of the episodes that made me enjoy the show, for the most part, like the show that brought me the most enjoyment, is like when they were trying to find that one guy who was like the proverbial like bomber or something, and they had to go about finding who this guy, how he was sourcing
Oh,
his
yeah.
That's
and
like
you
the
run that laundry plant for that like one episode
Yeah.
and like totally like touch everything up. I laughed so hard. Like I like that episode because it almost showed like how capable the characters were when they played to their own strength.
Yes.
It was just enjoyable to see them like take this dismal situation, and you know it's almost like, I think if people ever worked in like a minimum wage job, like a lot of that stuff like could speak volumes to them. So,
I think
like,
this show, yeah, this show had to do this like balancing act that sometimes it didn't succeed on, because like ultimately for me the show is a style piece. But and it tries to, like, for example, the episode where that takes place on a train and Chisei is trying to like kill the assassin who killed her father, like that's the right amount of cheesy for a style piece, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it also tries to use like Dickensian industrial era London poverty and misery as a stylistic element. And sometimes, at least for me, like that doesn't work because it's hard to stylize that and turn it into popcorn. So it's like, my dad beat me and I met up with him later during a spying mission. He's still a scumbag. And oh, well, I guess he tried to save my life at the very end. I guess that's all right. Now roll the credits. Yeah, like I didn't feel good about that episode at all.
No, because they never bring it up again. Because he was supposed to meet her at the bar and he never showed up. And so it's just, well, what are we doing with that information? Wouldn't Dorothy think that was a little weird?
Yeah, it just kind of ends on that note.
Yeah.
But
I feel like those kind of subjects are too real and heavy to use as like a stylistic element. Like they didn't explore that the way it should have been explored. But if they did, it would change the tone of the show. So there is a balancing act. Like they probably should have come up with a story that was more suitable to be made into like stylistic popcorn. Like, this assassin killed my father, now I will sword fight him, you know. Like cheesy stuff like that works. But sometimes they go into like the misery of poverty too hard and it doesn't work. I do really like Anje, whatever her name is, like basically the main character's backstory. Like that was pretty neat. Like what happened in the childhood and her relationship with the princess. Like that's also the right amount of cheesy. That you're like, yeah, that's a cool idea that happened. Like as implausible as it is. And these two characters were like forced to live very, very different lives. So yeah, for me, Princess Principal is a mixed bag. Like there were sometimes I really had to force myself to finish the series, and other times it was perfectly enjoyable.
All right. Well, let's go on to the next title, which sounds just as good. Sizzle Trap.
Oh, I did this for you guys. This thing was a piece of utter dreck. There is nothing redeeming about it at all. Story, animation, characters, blech. Oh, I don't even know what else to say about it. Except that it was terrible.
NTR thing?
Yes, this is the NTR thing. Yeah.
So it's just not good. Like, is it like Magical Warfare? Bad or?
Well, no, because the episodes are short. Thank goodness, they're about 10 minutes long, and everyone ends on a cliffhanger. And then the next episode starts up and immediately resolves the cliffhanger. Like, immediately. And so after a while, this becomes just the rhythm of the show. So the cliffhangers don't have any emotional impact because you know that everything's going to be okay. Because we'll either pull out a Deus Ex Machina in the next one, or it'll just totally fizzle. And the first one that I can think of is where the two girls are fooling around, and this sleazy boyfriend comes in and snaps a picture of him, and then basically asks them to make a sandwich, or else the picture's going to go everywhere. And that's where the episode ends. So you think, well, shit, that got dark fast. And then the next episode starts, and the girl just walks over to the sleaze bag, deletes the picture off his phone, and that's it. Really?
But hey, in this modern era of like cloud storage uploading, it wouldn't be over with just that.
Exactly. Which is why if you try and look at this, it all falls apart. Oh my gosh, it's terrible. And the animation is so bad. For a show where all people really do is talk and, walk to places with each other and then talk there's hardly any animation at all. The backgrounds are interchangeable, and I shit you not, they have speed lines when characters are yelling. It just...
Those words are coming out real fast.
Yeah. Or maybe they were going for loud. But the shorthand didn't work, and the animation's recycled, and yeah, it was really awful. If you have any more questions, feel free, because I don't know what else to say about it except avoid.
The way you make it sound is like I have to watch 2 episodes.
Okay, that was the exact opposite of my intent.
Because you're describing something, but I don't know how to compare it unless I see something.
I don't. I mean,
yeah, I thought you would have watched this just because of the NTR name, Tank.
I didn't even know what that was. I had to Google it.
Oh, really?
Yes.
See, I got scared of it because when I was looking up Scum's Wish on Amazon, because I heard that's where it was streaming, right?
Mm-hmm.
This came up as a recommendation for manga, and I was like, what?
Well, all of
I
the
saw Scum's
relationships
Wish, and it freaked me out.
These relationships are all toxic. I mean, even none of the characters are likable, and even the relationship between the two girls, the one girl is terribly manipulative and plays all these mind games.
The other one.
Yeah, it plays all these mind games with the other girlfriend. It's a shame because...
I'm asking you.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I'm sorry, so not like the toxic boyfriend, but the other one who I forget all their names, but like how we clearly have a protagonist of like the one girl who's not the manipulative one is clearly the protagonist.
Yeah.
Her relationship with the other guy isn't really toxic.
No, I guess that isn't. It's just I felt really bad for him because he cared for her and she was just not into him at all and didn't have the guts to really do anything about it. And then the other girl completely took advantage of that. And so it's a shame because it deals with domestic violence, but it's in a way that's so hammed up, it's unbelievable and has all the subtlety of a sledgehammer to the face. So it doesn't really have anything to say about that topic. It's mostly there just, I think, for people to get off on the fact that they're cheating on their boyfriends with each other. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know exactly why they made something like this.
Yeah, it's.
Do you think that's why they made them as shorts? Because they didn't think, just in case if it failed?
Perhaps it was one of those let's try and boost sales of the manga deals, because this one, there is no love with the art in it at all. Is that it was just slapdash, let's get this out the door and get as many eyeballs watching it as possible. There's really very little thought. And I don't know if the source material is the same way. It's entirely possible. But yeah, this was a time waster.
I haven't seen this one, maybe because I know what NTR is and I know that I don't want it.
Yeah.
But what you described is NTR to a T.
Oh, okay. Well.
So if that's literally your thing, then here's the anime for you. They made your anime.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like anyway.
Yeah.
NTR is one of those things that you learn at, I think, mainly at a convention. Kind of like yaoi, you know, you're in anime, then you go to a convention for the first time, and that's when you start learning about yaoi.
Oh, yeah.
And then
Did you go
after
to some sort of NTR panel? Do they have those?
That would not surprise me.
I don't.
No, it's probably more of a subgenre.
I mean, is it as big as yaoi and yuri?
No.
No.
No, it's not. But
it must not be, because I'd never heard of this until the show came along.
Where did I learn? I think Mike told me about it. I can't remember. I think I learned about it maybe at a convention, like one of the 18 plus panels.
Gosh, there was one show, was it Hen Zemi? I think, where one of the characters, this was his kink. I didn't watch very much of it. I think that was a short too. But that was just one character, and everyone's like, you're weird, dude. So they never really called it NTR, I don't think.
Well, let's go to something else now.
Yeah. Let's not waste any more breath on it.
Shokudo. What's that?
What is this one?
Isekai Shokudo?
Oh.
The
And you can take a guess from the title exactly what it is.
Yeah. I dropped it after about 4 episodes, so I haven't seen the whole thing.
So what made you drop it?
It's just the food porn doesn't really do anything for me. I wanted more story.
Oh, that's what the show was. Okay.
Yeah, and the dishes all looked great. I wish I could reach through the TV and eat them, but watching a show about people enjoying food is like watching someone play a video game that you really want to play. It just seems sadistic in a way.
Honestly, my motivation for watching this was because I was intrigued by that gap that we almost have in this timeline, because the whole premise of the restaurant in another world, as I'm just going to call it for right now, is that there's this door that randomly appears in this fantasy world, and it's like specifically one world. It doesn't really like bridge to other realms or worlds or whatever. And like every Saturday or day of Satar, the door appears, and it's kind of crazy, because like I had like, I'm not trying to like dissect this show too much, but you entered in the door, you ate at the restaurant, and you left the door. And the biggest thing was like, this is a restaurant in Japan that tries to premiere Western themed dishes. And they don't, a lot of the foreigners, as I'm going to call them, because they're coming in from another world, don't really like get that. So like, you know, it's happening in Japan, but they're trying to show off like Western food, and you have that gap of, you know, people coming from this like not medieval, but you know, that general time frame into like having food made in modern conventional ways, and just kind of experiencing that. Now, I will admit, I almost kind of hated when they would like analyze the food, like they take a bite and like they try to do like one of those cooking show reactions. And to me, that's really not what I was watching for, because I don't think it came across the right way. Because like at times, like you had a variety of casts. You'd have like elves, lizardmen, you know, like mostly humans, some demons, some
So
fairies, and
these
stuff like
guys are
that.
coming to our world to eat at a restaurant in
Yeah.
Japan.
Well,
You know,
yeah.
the more you're telling me about this premise, the more disappointed I am. I wanted to
Yeah.
hear that it was about a chef who got crushed by a cow or like died of food poisoning, and the god of food took him to the other
No,
world,
no, not at all.
and he has to
No,
like cook a dragon or something.
no. Anyway,
You're thinking of the cell phone show.
so what I really actually did like though is like how it kind of had regulars form. Like everybody was so impressed with this food that they kind of like did things to make sure that they could come to this restaurant. Some regulars were like, if I could make it, great. If not, but it was kind of funny because like the door wasn't in a convenient place for these like dwarves out in this one episode. So they like made a cabin in the mountains that became like a big like traveling like waypoint for like everyone else. But it's like they constructed that there just so that they could get to this restaurant and you know back. And like some more demon-esque races, it was kind of funny because like they'd have like gladiator style matches, and only the strongest of the village could like go in and like place the order and like come back with like just a little bit of food for everyone else while they got to like eat their them. Like I liked when it was getting lost in how these characters interacted with this world instead of just the, oh, I'm eating this thing, it's so good. I hated that aspect of the
So
show.
it's like how to provide. They went into like food service and like having to have the right furniture for to like seat all these weird guests or what?
No, they didn't really go into that at all. But
Oh.
I just more liked how, like, sometimes a character would come to this, you know, this modern restaurant, and then they would be like there was this one elf who tried to basically bring a lot of that back. There was actually two different examples of characters bringing something back, not like food wise, but they were trying to mimic the techniques used in modern culture with what they had back then, and they were kind of like delving into that. More mentalities like that is more like I was more interested with how people were affected, like traveling between this time reality gap, more so than them just eating a parfait when parfait shouldn't exist.
Nick, you kind of make me think of like, especially the things I saw that you hated, like how they did like the Food Wars, that anime where they would just overreact whenever they ate
Oh,
something and
I didn't really
described
hate
it.
that, but
But I'm just saying, in this show, they did that kind of low key,
yeah, very
with kind of.
because you just like see their faces light up, they and then they go the bloody blah like because that's a big part of the food shows is after you have that insane like mental picture reaction, they have to go into the stringent bloody blah and they like they kind of analyze it in a way that doesn't really work because you know taste is really subjective, and just like describing food doesn't really work, at least to me. Maybe someone else enjoys it, but it's like when someone's trying to describe a dish to me, it's like, you know, compare it to another food, say it's kind of like this food dish, but here's how it's different, instead of the stringentness of like there's no way to verbally communicate taste in my opinion. It's just it's like describe the color red to me, it just doesn't really work. So like that's why I hate when characters like it's great to see that they're enjoying it, and if they could spin it that way, show like why they liked it, what they enjoyed, instead of describing the dish and how good it is.
So you probably liked that arc where the guy was talking about the shrimp and it reminded him of home, kind of thing.
I think like that one was just like one. I actually liked when they were like going to like the fantasy races more. Like, you know, the you had the sirens, the kind of the fairies a little bit. Hard to say, but I just kind of liked people looking forward to going to this restaurant, and like the ongoings at the restaurant between like the restaurant guests and like how do you tell your friend you know about something like this, because that was a big thing. Like in a lot of the episodes when people eventually stumble on this door, the big thing is like how do you like let your friends or family know? Is it just going to be your secret, or who do you choose to like bring with you to expose the Saturday only secret of going to this restaurant? Stuff like that is what I enjoyed a little bit more than showing off the cooking per se. Because like a lot of the characters, it's like, you know, hey, I'm going to bring my friend somewhere special. And in one of the episodes, just specifically talking about something here, there one of the premises, one of the characters is kind of discriminated against. Not really, because it's not that kind of a show. Because like she's like demon in Birthright, she's got like horns and stuff. But aside from that, she's completely human. So she doesn't fit in amongst the humans because she's demon, and amongst the demons, she's particularly powerless. So she gets pretty ousted there too. And it's hard for her to find to make a living because, you know, she's just that odd of a character. Well, she's just that odd out basically. And you know, she gets a job at this restaurant every Saturday only because she foreseeably can't just stay in Japan. Like, I mean, I considered such a thing. Why I kind of wanted her to become a permanent resident of Japan and like work solely at the restaurant. But um, she does find work at one point back in the real world. Another restaurant guest patron actually lets her work as like a maid or something for her. And she has a sister who comes by, and the owner of the restaurant like gave her like a tin of those like kind of like butter like, you know, the traditional Japanese handcraft cookies. Like you always see like for Valentine's Day people making them or something. And they're just so impressed. Like she brings it back, she gives it to the sister. Like she so the, you know, the powerless demon girl gives a cookie to the younger sister of one of the restaurant regulars, not because the younger sister doesn't actually know about the restaurant. And she wants it so bad that like she gives the one girl like a whole gold coin. She's like, how much do you think this is? And they're like debating amongst themselves. She's like, well, it came from this tin. So she brings back the tin, and they're looking at the tin, and they're like appraising the tin. They're like, holy crap, this stuff must be expensive. So she gives her like a gold coin saying like, bring me back a tin plus change, and here's a whole gold piece. I'm because I don't know how much it comes to. And then like she goes back to the restaurant, buys like 2 tins worth, like 1 silver, which I think it's like, you know, the silver's usually 100 silvers makes like a good gold coin or something. And they're just so like blown away that it only costs that much because of that difference in, metalworking and just a whole bunch of other stuff. Like those moments are what I like the best, when they just can't believe that like this tin was like like 1 silver's worth instead of like a whole gold coin. Just like looking at the artisan craft that went into making it, because like they just don't know like what production is like on this side.
I could picture a show with a similar premise that would be interesting, where that's about like the challenges of food service, you know, and then you throw into the mix these like supernatural customers. It's like, okay, how do we service them, or how do we service, you know, like customers who may have completely different tastes.
Mhm.
Like you could make an anime that has a lot of like it could be a comedy anime, kind of like Working, but with more focus on like real life food service and the challenges of. This isn't that show, is it?
No,
Okay.
no, it mostly, like I
Is it
said,
like
the
is it like
regulars
too
at the
food
restaurant.
porny or something?
The funny thing is, the joke of the whole series, not that it's a comedy, is when the regulars come to the restaurant, the first dish that they try is like the dish that they lock on to just being the best, and not many characters are willing to try the whole menu, which is something that I didn't like, because my big thing is when I go to a restaurant with like great food, I want to try everything. I don't just decide the first thing that I tried is just the absolute best and it's the only thing I order every week. So that's like an element of the show that I didn't like. But mostly people come in, they place their order for the first thing that they tried, and very few episodes do they actually try something else. And that, you know, they're still, oh, this is really good, but I still think my dish is the best. But it is mostly that. Like, it's showcasing more of Western dishes with a reaction from otherworldly beings, but like it's set in Japan, so we don't have like a big language barrier between like actually being like based in English.
So actually, you kind of remind me of something. I think it was like called Bartender, like where each episode was based off of a drink.
Uh-huh.
I saw that. I saw that show.
And those drinks had a story told with one person.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, I think what this is, just with the otherworld element.
Yeah, like that's very much every episode. It introduces usually a new dish in some way, but then like it still like shows up later, because like once the regular has tried that new dish, every time they come to the restaurant, that's what they're going to be getting. And the next episode's about another, you know, someone trying something else for the first time before it becomes regular for them.
Okay, so it's like really dish centric, not like I saw Bartender. That was a show where like a person comes into the bar with their troubles and they give their whole backstory, and they're like, I'm just stressed out because of this problem I'm having in my life. And then the bartender's like, I know what drink you need. And then he makes it, and then as they're drinking it, they have an epiphany. It was a rather humorous show.
That's a little bit like this one stylistically, because like, you know, like Tank said, there's a character who likes the shrimp, so the shrimp dish was for him. And like the fairies, they like eat desserty cake things like parfait. No, like omelets, I think were no crepes. Crepes were their thing. And they like fought amongst themselves for like the crepe-esque dishes. But like one episode in particular, just to showcase why they talk about Western food, is there was an episode where they serve what's the fermented soybean stuff?
Natto is the name of it.
Yeah. So he served natto, but like because it's Western themed, he put it on he served it with spaghetti. Spaghetti noodles is what the bed of natto was on. So natto on a bed of spaghetti noodles. And at one point, I think it's an elf who's eating, and elves are typically vegan in nature. So like there was that episode where a vegan comes into his restaurant and he has to like come up with what he has that's vegan or what he can make vegan.
Man, natto on spaghetti. As a person who has natto sometimes, that would be a really slimy dish.
Yeah, well, it's just bland noodles. Like the noodles aren't sauced or anything, and the natto is like the topping. But then
this is like pasta noodles?
Yeah, like just spaghetti. Like,
I don't know. I still think that would be really slimy.
And
but okay.
So as she's eating it, she asks the owner if she envisions that it'll go really well on rice, and she asks if he could.
Hello?
Whoa.
It's not me this time, huh?
I guess
nope.
Unless we don't need to know about that.
I got muted for some reason. I don't know why.
But you're back.
Maybe the camera died.
Just auto muted and.
Maybe it was the camera you were using died, because you said you were using the microphone on the camera.
Oh, it does look like it died.
Yeah, it sounds like you're on the other mic because your voice is softer.
I wonder what killed my webcam. Strange. Well, I'll reset that and I'll make sure it's all working in a little bit. But if you audio boost me just enough to finish this.
Yeah, here you go.
Okay. So as I was saying, like one of the big things was she requested for it to be put on rice, and the guy's like, "Man, we're supposed to be a Western restaurant." So he complies anyway, and she has natto on a bed of rice, and she's like, "I knew it. It was like perfect." And you know that's that. So then they go back to their realm, and they're kind of messing with making stuff like natto and like the base for various other foods. Sorry, my webcam's in the way of the current webcam, but that's just why. I'll go fix it now, but see what happened.
Okay, let me see here. What can we do next? How about we talk about gamers real quick, and Jessica can tell us why she quit it.
Oh, not just any. I actually really liked Gamers a lot. I just got behind and then ran out of time, and suddenly it's October and we had our meeting, so I prioritized what I needed to finish. And Gamers sadly wasn't a high priority for me, but I am going to finish watching it because it's just good, clean fun. It makes me laugh, and yeah, it's a fun show.
All right, well, let's maybe save that for next time then, if we do have a next time. I don't know, maybe Albert wants to talk about something next time.
I kind of want to know about Recreators because I saw like 5 or 6 episodes of that, and it got really talky, and then I stopped. And
A, B, C, R.
It's still kind of talky. In fact, the conflict was resolved by a battle that spanned probably 3 or 4 episodes, but then ultimately it was a conversation that saved the day.
yay!
I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. The idea was really cool. And it was fun that way. But I don't know if I'd recommend it necessarily as a must-watch. Because pretty much if you've seen the first 6 episodes or so, it doesn't do anything more differently in the later episodes. So what you see is what you're going to get.
So does it have this rhythm of like introducing a new character and then they meet the creator or something?
Kind of at first. Thank you, sweetie.
Nick's telling us to pause real quick. I think he wants to do an audio test.
Oh, okay. What is this?
Here, let me raise his volume because I can't hear him. Speak.
Any issues? Sometimes this mic is like hyped off the bat before I adjust it, and like that chipmunk voice.
It's good. Oh, sorry, Jessica, continue.
What was I saying? I don't remember. I got Starbucks now.
What does Recreators do structurally?
Oh, the rhythm of it. At first it is like that, but then you reach a point where we've met all of the creations that we really could, and some creations double up with the creator, so it's not introducing new characters every week. Oh, but a standout moment from the show is it has the best recap episode of any anime ever, hands down.
At the same time.
Yeah, episode 13. It is hysterical because it's done in universe, where one of the characters is talking about the recap episode as being a recap episode and giving her spin on the story. So she makes herself this tall, gorgeous, confident woman, taking center part in the story, who's all powerful and has these amazing attacks and stuff. It's really cleverly done.
The funniest thing is I didn't care much about the dialogue of like, because she did like spin a few moments before she corrected him. She's like, here's how it happened. No, just kidding. Here's how it actually happened. But the funniest thing to me is when they came out and saying, we plan to do this recap episode from the get-go. Don't worry about like production level issues. Like that's not why we did this episode.
Yeah.
That's why I was laughing the most, because like that's usually attributed to the recap episode. And, you know, was there actually an issue that they were trying to cover up? I personally don't know. You know, were they just trying to make you not look for it? Because they said we were going to do this from the get-go and it's really not because it's an emergency situation. Like, I really couldn't tell. Like, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to take your word for it or not. But,
It was pretty entertaining, if nothing else.
I'll say Recreators, I'm kind of bittersweet about, because it had the strong start of the concept of, like, you know, media characters coming to reality while retaining, like, their powers and having to realize that they've been transported to another world. Like, it was there. But then, like, the middle of the show is kind of mostly if the government's response, basically, is what I call it, because as these people are happening, you know, the government's going to want to control the situation. So they kind of like construct a means of making a government response team for this new thing while like doing a media level cover up. To me, that's where the show kind of got a little boring, because it you know, the dialogue heavy nature of it wasn't having fun with characters coming to reality anymore. We got too much down to making it real, you know. It's like the characters weren't cutting loose and having fun. They weren't analyzing their tropes too terribly much, like playing out in reality. It was just like, okay, the government's got to make a crew to go find the authors and make this all controlled under, not controlled, but like to reach this understanding of how things are currently playing out. So you know that I think stuff like that's necessary, but that's just when the show, like I said, wasn't cutting loose anymore, and I loved it when it was cutting loose and having fun. And towards the end, it kind of got that spirit a little bit back because we weren't really focusing on introducing characters and having more tropes emerge into reality. But it had a little bit more fun because there's like a character who came out as a normal human, because most of the people who were coming over were like super powered entities, right? They're either like from some Persona verse or some Mech verse or some Fate Stay verse. Like they all had that origin. Well, we did have one character come out at one point who was straight up a normal person from an eroge. Like she was just a normal human from an eroge. And that made it funny again because it's like everyone kind of knew what surrounded that character's history. It's like it was complicated. And then you kind of had this problem of, well, what do we do with a normal person? Like everyone's going to go in with their mech, their swords, and all this other stuff. Are we just going to have her like stay back here and just be back here because, you know, she's from an eroge, she's just a normal person, can't do much. And like that, when they brought her creator in and had him come up with the solution that he did, to me that's like moments I loved the show again. Like it was cutting loose with its premise and it was having fun with it, and it wasn't like, you know, the government making a response team and managing things from there. So like I do like the startup and the particular end a lot, but it's that middle portion of its telling its story narrative while focusing on being practical that I just don't have as much enjoyment with. And I just wish it was like its beginning and ending a little bit more. Like, you know, just like kind of like how No Game No Life was this like this progression of like fantasy and like being like interesting at all times, like not like thrilling, but you know, it focused on its premise of the two of them kind of beating all odds at all times and not really getting down to the world's response to them. Like, what does the world think about these characters coming here? How's the government reacting to these people come? Like, it didn't focus on that. And I just wish it took its focus off telling that side of the story just a little bit more to include more moments of, you know, tropes becoming real.
Yeah, I've only saw like 5 or 6 episodes, but I did get the impression that it was too reverent of its own concepts, in the sense that it would prefer to, you know, explain with pages of dialogue exactly what these concepts are, rather than make them interactive and have fun with them.
Yes.
So that like there was the potential for a really fun show based on that premise. You know, that was more like Who Framed Roger Rabbit or something.
Yeah, like
it's like very
still
kinetic and wacky, but
decent, but it's not like I believe it's kind of like it didn't achieve its true potential with the means that they chose, and that's just my, you know, interpretation of it. But so like I loved and it's kind of funny because like a small spoiler here. I don't really want to talk about too many spoilers, but you know how we have the concept of spoilering? Like we announce spoilers because we don't want to ruin the story for like anyone else. One of the rather funny moments in this series is one of the characters who, you know, was a fictional character became real during like a mixed event, which was like the finale of this whole show, revealed a spoiler to the audience as a character. You know, the character revealed a story about his own story that we then saw the director behind the scenes going like, why do you say that? How am I going to do things now?
That was
it
pretty
just
damn funny.
Like, moments like that is what I loved from the show, and those are few and far between. And you know, the episodes like 4 to 20, I don't know. Like it's not a completely boring show, but it's just not having fun like that at all times, and that's more of what I wanted to see achieved. And just to, you know, not to ruin the story for anyone watching it, but a funny, like, how it had fun with its own premise, kind of like another way, is there's the character Meteora, which is who Jessica was referring, did the recap episode. She came up with this, like, spell to add to her spell book that would actually gauge, like her spell itself was literally like a gauge on how much power they had in bending reality. Like, you know, the authors would write their story, the audience would have to receive it, and the spell would literally give them active feedback on how much approval they got from it to basically carry out their plot. But it was just kind of cool that they made this spell that literally said, okay, guys, we're doing things the right way. They're liking this, and it's going to work out. Like, when you're designing an anime, that's kind of like a really cool tool that you wish you had to see in the future. Like, if we do things this way, how would the audience react? And they kind of like, they made the spell to tell them, like, if people, like, as people were enjoying it in real time, basically. So I kind of like moments like that where, you know, it just kind of came up with this wacky zany concept of this spell can read people's acceptance of our story by portraying its level of power.
All right, we're almost at that 2 hour mark, but so I don't know if we'll have a second episode, or guys, if we should just get back with me if you want to talk about anything else that we're going to finish maybe next week. Maybe Albert will want to join me. Nick, you still have a lot of titles you can talk about.
Yeah, I didn't talk about my favorite openings or closings yet.
One thing I was actually surprised no one watched The Reflection. I thought people liked that, but I don't know.
Man, I suppose I already wrote my piece about it in the community. I did watch one episode, and holy shit, it was super bad.
Oh, it was bad?
Like,
yeah.
What level bad are we talking?
It's like, what happened to this bad?
Oh.
It's like incompetent bad. Like just everything that the character designs are kind of cool. Everything else about it is terrible. Like, everything else about it is like really stilted. Like the pacing of the storyboard is just awkward. Like, there are so many shots that just linger, and you're like, oh, now what? And you know, it's just moment by moment is extremely awkward. So, and what's surprising to me about The Reflection is that it comes from people who are very competent. Maybe not Stan Lee, because this is a Stan Lee thing, but it does come from basically from Team Mushishi. It comes from Yoshihiko Umakoshi as character designer and animation director. You know, so that he is a pillar of competence. And if you look him up, he's done like so many like really good looking popular anime. And it also comes from Hiroshi Nagahama, you know, who is controversial sometimes. You know, he did Mushishi, but he also did Flowers of Evil, Akunohana. But he also did Jubei-chan too, you know, which is really good action anime. So, you know, to have these two guys come together, but with Stan Lee, and make this thing that's terrible was like really shocking to me. It's like just terrible on a basic competency level. Like, it didn't play well. So yeah, I don't know what went wrong with The Reflection, but I would like to know. But yeah, I didn't watch it beyond one episode. Like, I peaked at episode 2. I'm like, oh, it's still shitty in the exact same way. This thing's a disaster somehow.
What happened to Akunohana season 2?
They never made it, I guess.
What happened to Sunko Roll movie 2?
Who knows, man? It's supposed to come out like 2 summers ago. Like, where is it?
I keep checking its website to see if it's been taken down, and it's still there.
Like, another one I've been wondering about was Kami-sama Dolls. They had an ending where it's like, coming soon.
Mm-hmm.
I hate when they do that and then they don't bring anything.
I guess the problem with Akunohana is that each episode was twice the cost of the average anime episode, and also it was not a popular show. Like, it is a cult thing, you know, like people who have seen it really like it.
They should
But
do a Kickstarter then.
yeah, like overall, it's not popular. It's just like one of those shows that failed to find an audience, right? Like if they put it on Netflix or something, or if they pitched it to people who would like anime if it was cooler or different, if they sort of pitch it to those underground animation people, then I think it would have found an audience. But like anime always has this problem of finding the audience if it's outside of like the core otaku group or outside of mainstream taste. Like there are so many titles that have this problem, and I hope that with streaming this problem will start to become alleviated, but not yet, I suppose.
Because like, I'll admit, when I first started watching it, I was like, I'm dropping this. There's no way I'm finishing this. And then someone told me I had to watch it. I can't remember which one of you. And then once I got past halfway, I was like, holy cow.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it started taking off. And
yeah, like episode 7 is the turning point. I still remember it.
I just remember when I got to that point, just straight to Google. Oh my gosh, what the fuck? During the middle of my marathon. But yeah, so sad. So next week, if we do this, I also want to talk about maybe No Game No Life 0, which is that movie that's coming out in theaters. This Thursday is the subtitled version, and then Saturday is the English dubbed version out in theaters. So I think, Nick, did you put it on the Anime Talk website?
Yeah, I posted the link to the Fatam event thing.
Yeah, so you can at least figure out, see if it's on your in your area to watch. Everything's like 10 days away from Jessica, I think.
Yeah.
Really, even like that one?
Well, I keep hoping, since we're a college town, that the local theater that isn't owned by a huge corporation will get it. They did have Your Name, and I think they had a silent voice.
Your Name got around, like, more so than the
Fathom
event ones. I don't know who backed that one, because like it
wasn't
Funimation,
I think.
nor was it.
They'll get the Ghibli movies too every once in a while, so I keep hoping that they'll.
The Ghibli movies are usually done by the Fathom things, or at least they keep track of them. So like if they're getting the Ghibli movies, you might be getting that one. Like if you went to that site and did the zip code punch in or whatever.
I will check.
But the Fathom is actually the reason why I believe the Ghibli films are back, because they have an anime section on their website, and aside from the No Game No Life, they're actually all the Ghibli films are lined up there too, because like that's what they're doing alongside the new movie releases right now. So like just because they have that Ghibli presence around you, I think you have a good shot for that one.
Can I just say it's been a really good year for anime movies?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah, well, because like I said, I hate how Aniplex does it. Aniplex has
nobody does it like Aniplex
all over the place that usually oust a wide range of the audience, like of the average anime fan that's well spread throughout the United States. Then came along Fathom, or the Fathom thing, which when the movies are playing on Aniplex, they'll usually have like local theater like listing, not local, but like we're only used to the music box for the most part. They run the movie, like you have a couple of chances to watch it before it's gone. And then the Fathom event came along, and it's really cool because they'll usually play a director vocal cast interview right before the movie is like starting. So like as you're picking your seat, you get there early enough. The vocal crew is talking about like doing the movie or what to look forward to, whatever the interview is about.
Is this like a Crunchyroll thing, or what is this? The Phantom, the Fathom,
Yeah, like I don't know who they did this Ordinal Scale movie, and that's one of the first things that I've witnessed their events through. But like they take Aniplex films, and it's like they're like a separate entity from Aniplex. I don't know who they are. I never looked into their background. But as I was saying, they have a ton more theaters lined up than the traditional Aniplex film. For me, I'm right next to St. Louis. My options to go watch an Aniplex film are usually the Music Box in Chicago, 4+ hours, a theater in Indiana for ish hours, or Kansas City, Missouri, which is right next to the border of Kansas City, or of Kansas, which, you know, is, I think, 5 hours. So like theaters are very far away from me, but I'm still willing to make that drive because I like my anime movies. But and then the Fathom events come along, and I have like 6 theaters in my area or something. Like they're not like my local theaters, but like, you know, there's like 3 in St. Louis. There's 1 in a sister city, well, a cousin city to me, and they're like, you know, half an hour drives as opposed to 4+ hours. And their big thing though, which kind of sucks though, is when they do a showing, they show off the subbed or dubbed, and they have a specific date and only in one specific time. Like every theater plays it at the same time. You don't really get to pick a convenient time. So you kind of have to learn when their events are coming out and like set time aside to do them, because like across their whole release, like every theater is like showing that No Game No Life moving at 7 p.m. respective to their whatever their time zone is. So you don't have to adjust, like unless you're transitioning a state border yourself for some reason. But like, you know, so technically some people are going to get to see it like an hour or two ahead of us who are on that side of the coast because it's starting at their 7 and not our 7. But I've told a lot of people about it, and you know, they're just so swept up in, oh well, I work that day, or you know, that it's a bad time for me, I have other plans. And it's like, you only have the one shot at the subbed and then the dubbed movie. You don't really get to go any day of the week. So on that hand, it's kind of one of the downfalls of their events. But it's kind of nice that they do the interviews and they have that wide theater range. And then yeah, that when Your Name came out, like they had about as many, like they had more theaters, I think, than the typical Fathom event. But it like, that one was already cleared to be like a worldwide release, like because of its success in Japan. They're like, we are going to bring this movie to, you know, not just America, it's going to have like this world tour concept. So that's what I attributed it to. Like, that movie was special because it was decided to go on a world tour, and that's nobody in particular trying to bring the movie, you know, overseas to you. Because like we have Aniplex of America that assumably handles Aniplex films getting into theater. Now we have that Fathom group who does the film their way, and it's not like we didn't have that news article saying like these movies are making world tours. I think those are like actual American entities who are working to bring them over. And Fathom is kind of funny because well, not funny, but they also, like when they release movies, I think like Malaysia gets them first. And if there's like theatrical leaks, if someone sneaks in with a webcam and that footage hits the internet, like the companies, I don't know what the licensing deals are like, but the companies in Japan get like really upset about any kind of a cam rip, and they actually threaten to stop exporting movies to countries that have webcam leaks a lot. And I think if someone actually like obtained a full digital copy ahead of time, like maybe it was like some theater guy who somehow was able to copy the movie and put it out to the internet some way, like that would be like a nail in the coffin for that whole region.
I was actually referring to anime movies that are being made, like putting the distribution of movies to the side. I actually think theaters are bad, and if they all blew up tomorrow, I would shed no tears. Then everything would be streaming first, and we could watch everything at the same time. Just anime movies that have been put out this year, or I don't know, some of them are from last year, but we only get to see them this year because there are theaters and there's exclusivity in their regions. But anyway, like it's been a really good year because we got Kizu 3, which sort of completed the package, and I felt like that made the whole trilogy better. Just being able to see all those movies all at once in a row, the way it was supposed to be. We got, I guess Your Name is a big thing. It was a fun watch. People like it. There's a Kono Sekai no Katasumi ni, the In This Corner of the World, turned out to be pretty good. You know, even though it's somewhat of niche interest, it's not meant to be a blockbuster. We got the KyoAni movie. What was that? A Silent Voice, Koi no Katachi. Like that ended up being really good.
The Shape of Your Voice.
Yeah, I saw it with like crappy subs, and now I need to see it again.
So the only thing I want to say is that the Aniplex release, even though they're obscured or far off, got cool posters and things like that. I just wish Fathom or Crunchyroll would do that, because when you go to their movies, you just watch the movie. You don't get any memorabilia or anything like that. Yeah.
That actually does make me wonder if they're gonna like, where did they get that footage of the interview from? Is that gonna be on, Japanese level distribution released Blu-rays, and we just got the translation of that ahead of time?
I mean, maybe it was at a Japanese premiere event. If they were all on a stage doing it with an audience, then that would be where they did it.
I watched the Ordinal Scale one a little bit, and they were like closed room somewhere.
Yeah.
It definitely wasn't a stage reception.
And that's like Blu-ray extras kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's actually something that I think adds to, I think that's what's making the industry kind of maybe even dislike doing movies like this, is the No Game No Life Zero that we're getting ready to watch this October, like literally upcoming here on the 5th in 4 days. No Game No Life, the movie, came out in Japan in July. So and I forget if it was at the beginning, middle, or end of July, but it was July. And first week of October, we're watching it here in English with that interview thing. But when is the planned disc release at this point? Because you aired your movie in July. Now in October, it's still in theaters around the world in some levels, so they're assumably not going to release the Blu-ray while it's in this theatrical tour. It's how far does that push back the Blu-ray because they are doing this? I'm not sure.
The in this corner of the world, the home video release for that has been pushed back a whole lot because the movie ended up being very popular, and then they wanted to do more distribution worldwide, and show it in this region and show it in that region, and do another showing in Japan.
Absolutely.
So it's another reason why we should burn all theaters to the ground.
Well, let's go ahead and say goodbye to everyone. Goodbye, farewell, and all that other stuff. Thank you, Jessica, Nick, and Sean.
Goodbye.
Yep.
Like I said, check Anime Talk if we're going to be doing another video. And have fun this week as new episodes come out, right? For the, fall season? Stopping.